Hi, friends. Hope all of you are fine. Today I will share the information about Andaman and Nicobar Island. Please try to see the full video and enjoy. Also subscribe my channel and share to your friends and relatives. The history of organized European colonization on the islands began when settlers from the Danish East India Company arrived in the Nicobar Islands on the 12th of December, 1755. On the 1st of January, 1756, the Nicobar Islands were made a Danish colony, first named New Denmark, and later, December 1756, Frederick's Islands, Frederiksøerne. During 1754-1756, they were administrated from Tranquebar, in continental Danish India. From the 1st of June 1778 to 1784, Austria mistakenly assumed that Denmark had abandoned its claims to the Nicobar Islands and attempted to establish a colony on them, renaming them Teresia Islands. In 1789, the British set up a naval base and penal colony on Chatham Island, next to Great Andaman, where now lies the town of Port Blair. 2 years later, the colony was moved to Port Cornwallis on Great Andaman, but it was abandoned in 1796 due to disease. Denmark's presence in the territory ended formally on the 16th of October, 1868, when it sold the rights to the Nicobar Islands to Britain, which made them part of British India in 1869. The cellular jail was a colonial prison used to exile political prisoners. In 1858, the British again established a colony at Port Blair, which proved to be more permanent. The primary purpose was to set up a penal colony for criminal convicts from the Indian subcontinent. The colony came to include the infamous cellular jail. In 1872, the Andaman and Nicobar Islands were united under a single chief commissioner at Port Blair. During World War II, the islands were practically under Japanese control, only nominally under the authority of the Arzi Hukumate Azad Hind of Subhash Chandra Bose. Subhash Chandra Bose visited the islands during the war and renamed them as Shahid Dweep, Martyr Island, and Swaraj Dweep, Self-Rule Island. General Loganathan of the Indian National Army was made the governor of the Andaman and Nicobar Islands. On the 22nd of February 1944, he, along with 4 INA officers, Major Mansoor Ali Alvi, Sub-Roll Lieutenant Mand Iqbal, Lieutenant Suba Singh, and stenographer Srinivasan, arrived at Lambeline Airport in Port Blair. On the 21st of March 1944, the headquarters of the civil administration was established near the Gurudwara at Aberdeen Bazaar. On the 2nd of October 1944, Colonel Loganathan handed over the charge to Major Alvi and left Port Blair, never to return. Japanese Vice Admiral Haratezo and Major General Tamanori Sato surrendered the islands to Brigadier J.A. Salomons, commander of 116th Indian Infantry Brigade, and Chief Administrator Mr. Noel K. Patterson, Indian Civil Service, on the 7th of October 1945, in a ceremony performed on the Gymkhana Ground, Port Blair. During the independence of both India, 1947, and Burma, 1948, the departing British announced their intention to resettle all Anglo-Indians and Anglo-Burmese on these islands to form their own nation, although this never materialized. It became part of India in 1950 and was declared as a union territory of the nation in 1956. India has been developing defense facilities on the islands since the 1980s. The islands now have a key position in India's strategic role in the Bay of Bengal and the Malacca Strait. On the 26th of December 2004, the coasts of the Andaman and Nicobar Islands were devastated by a 10 (33 feet) massive tsunami following the undersea earthquake off Indian Ocean. More than 2,000 people lost their lives, more than 4,000 children were orphaned or suffered the loss of one parent, and a minimum of 40,000 people were rendered homeless. More than 46,000 people were injured. The worst affected Nicobar Islands were Cachel and Indira Point. The latter subsided 4.25 meters, 13.9 feet, and was partially submerged in the ocean. The lighthouse at Indira Point was damaged but has been repaired since then. The territory lost a large amount of area, which is now submerged. The Andamans comprise more than 300 islands. North, Middle, and South Andaman, known collectively as Great Andaman, are the main islands. Others include Landfall Island, Interview Island, the Sentinel Islands, Ritchie's Archipelago, and Rutland Island. Little Andaman in the south is separated from the Nicobar Islands. The Nicobars consist of 19 islands. Among the most prominent are Car Nicobar in the north, Comorta, Cachel, and Nancowry in the center of the chain, and Great Nicobar in the south. About 90 miles to the southwest of Great Nicobar lies the northwestern tip of Sumatra, Indonesia. Formed of sandstone, limestone, and shale of Cenozoic age, that is, formed during the past 65 million years, the terrain of the Andamans is rough, with hills enclosing narrow longitudinal valleys. Flat land is scarce and is confined to a few valleys, such as the Betapur on Middle Andaman and Diglipur on North Andaman. Perennial rivers are few. The coral-fringed coasts of the islands are deeply indented, forming safe harbors and tidal creeks. The climate of the Andaman and Nicobar Islands is tropical, but is moderated by sea breezes. Temperatures typically rise from the low about 23 degrees Celsius into the mid about 30 degrees Celsius daily throughout the year. The territory receives roughly 120 inches, 3,000 mm of rain annually, brought mainly by the southwest monsoon, which blows from May through September, and by the tropical cyclones that follow in October and November. In the Nicobars, Great Nicobar receives considerably more rain than the other islands. The great majority of the area of the Andaman and Nicobar Islands is covered with dense tropical forest, which supports a broad spectrum of flora and fauna. The dominant tree species include Nara, also called Andaman redwood or paddock, Pterocarpus dalbergioides, and various large trees of the family Dipterocarpaceae. The harbors and tidal creeks often are surrounded by mangrove swamps. Many species of tree ferns of the family Cyatheaceae are found in the Nicobars, but not in the Andamans. The vast majority of the population of the Andamans consists of immigrants from South Asia and their descendants. Most speak Hindi or Bengali, but Tamil, Telugu, and Malayalam also are common. The indigenous inhabitants of the Andaman Islands, the Andamanese, historically comprised small isolated groups, all speaking dialects of the Andamanese language. They used the bow and the dog for hunting but knew no method of making fire. Turtles, dugongs, and fish were caught with nets or harpooned from single outrigger canoes. The remoteness of the Andamanese and their general hostility toward foreigners prevented major cultural change until the mid-20th century. Few indigenous Andamanese survive today, most groups having been decimated by disease following their encounter with Europeans, Indians, and other outsiders. In the early 21st century, the only Andamanese groups that remained intact and continued to practice the ways of their ancestors included a small group of Great Andamanese on Strait Island, the Sentinelese of North Sentinel Island, the Jarawa of the interior areas of Middle and South Andaman, and the Onge of Little Andaman. Agriculture is the occupation of most of the residents of the Andaman Islands. Principal crops include rice, coconuts, betel, areca nuts, fruits and spices, such as turmeric. Rubber, oil palms, and cashews also are important. In addition to farming, there is a small forestry sector on the islands, which focuses on production of sawn wood for domestic use. Surpluses are exported to the Indian mainland. Similarly, the products of the island's fisheries are intended primarily for domestic consumption. Tourism is a growing industry in the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, with dozens of hotels scattered throughout the territory. Most tourists are from the Indian mainland. Popular historical attractions include remnants of the British colonial administration, such as the Andaman Cellular Jail in Port Blair, where the Indian revolutionary Vinayak Damodar, Veer Savarkar, was detained in the first half of the 20th century. The natural environment of the territory, with its many parks, gardens, and sanctuaries, is attractive to eco-tourists and trekkers. Beaches are often the reason for making a holiday in Andaman impeccable, but it is the food around that makes the experience there beyond impeccable. And thanks to the top restaurants in Andaman, trying and tasting these lip-smacking authentic cuisines is easily possible while you're tripping around the island. There are a variety of eating places ranging from cafes to Indian restaurants in Andaman, and therefore you'll get to choose from many. Know how the local food tastes by covering most of these restaurants listed below. Tour packages starts from Rs 18,000 for 4 days. There are many travel organizers such as Thomas Cook, Vina World, Make My Trip. Local tour cost will be around Rs 8,000/, including guide. Taxis, autos, buses, minibuses are the mode of local transport in Port Blair and other tourist places. Two-wheelers are available for hire in most of the places for sightseeing. In small islands like Swaraj Dweep and Shahid Dweep, cycles are advisable for exploring places of interest. Also, you can manage your own trip. Guess you are booking ferries online. Transport can be arranged locally. I went with wife for